The painting you're looking at right now was created in 1841, and its title is Pandemonium. In it, we see Satan standing proudly after building the greatest palace in hell, where he will gather with all the demons of the underworld. He observes his immense creation from a cluster of rocks surrounded by boiling lava, while a bolt of lightning strikes in the background as if celebrating such an infernal occasion. In the distance, like tiny armies, we can see rows and rows of followers marching in praise of their leader, waiting for the order to finally approach him. John Martin was a master of creating monumental and extremely dramatic paintings. Throughout most of his career, he focused on biblical stories filled with apocalyptic landscapes and exceptionally dark settings that make us feel incredibly small, and this painting was no exception. Pandemonium was not a place imagined by the artist. In fact, it is the name given to the capital of hell in the famous 17th century poem Paradise Lost by John Milton. Published in 1667, this epic poem tells the story of Satan's rebellion against God, his fall from heaven along with his followers, and the subsequent creation of hell. But what makes it truly extraordinary is the way Milton humanizes Satan. In this text, Satan is not portrayed as a simple evil figure, but as a complex, intelligent, and proud being who prefers to reign in hell rather than serve in heaven. In the opening cantos of the poem, Satan awakens after his fall, looks upon the abyss around him, and decides to build a city there. A majestic place destined to become the center of his infernal empire. That city is given the name Pandemonium, and this is precisely the scene John Martin chose to capture in his painting. This was not the first time Martin drew inspiration from Milton's poem. In fact, for more than a decade, he produced engravings based on Paradise Lost that became extremely popular in their time. In them, his characteristic style was already evident, filled with colossal landscapes, biblical cataclysms, stormy skies, and tiny figures overwhelmed by the monumental. His imagination seemed tailor-made to portray the epic visions of ancient texts. Pandemonium was the last work Martin dedicated to the Miltonic universe in 1841, and also the most grand. In it, he not only represents a key scene from the poem, but also brings together everything that obsessed him as an artist: chaos, glory, destruction, and of course, the opportunity to depict all of it on a gigantic scale, as if the viewer were witnessing the apocalypse itself. Now, although the inspiration for this work comes from a purely fantastical vision, its architecture is not entirely invented. In fact, if we look closely, the general structure of the building at the center of the scene strongly resembles the Palace of Westminster, the same one that today houses the British Parliament, and that is no coincidence. John Martin was living in London when the new building began construction after the fire of 1834. The entire city was aware of the project, and the Gothic revival design proposed by Charles Barry became a major topic in the urban landscape. Martin, as an artist deeply interested in the monumental and the dramatic, found in these real structures the perfect inspiration to imagine the capital of hell. When you place both buildings side by side, the similarities become striking in the rhythm of the columns, in the geometry of the facade, and of course in the overall grandeur. The most noticeable difference is that in the lower part of the building, Martin added a series of arches that raised the entire structure above a river of boiling lava. And on the facade, if you look carefully, you can see carved figures of coiled serpents, giving it a much darker appearance because we are no longer looking at a human construction, but at an infernal temple. As for the river flowing beneath the scene, it is not just an aesthetic element. This incandescent current is a symbolic and rather direct representation of the River Thames as it existed in the 1840s. At that time, the river was a genuine sanitary threat to the population. London faced constant cholera outbreaks, and its waters were so contaminated by human and industrial waste that the smell could be detected from several kilometers away. It was, quite literally, a foul and dangerous river. What is most interesting is that years before painting Pandemonium, John Martin had proposed an ambitious infrastructure plan to clean up the city, a network of sewers and canals that would have prevented many of the diseases that later devastated the population. However, no one took him seriously and the proposal was rejected. So Martin, likely frustrated, decided to transform the problem he was not allowed to solve into a vision of what hell itself might become as time passed. When Pandemonium was first exhibited in 1841 at the Royal Academy in London, not everyone was impressed. The painting received mixed reactions. Some viewers were dazzled by its scale, its drama, and the ambition behind it, but others found it excessive and even ridiculous. One of its most well-known critics was John Ruskin, one of the most influential artistic voices of the era. Ruskin had a very particular idea of what art should be. He believed it should be sober, moral, closely connected to nature, and rooted in spiritual values. And for him, the works of John Martin fulfilled none of these ideals. He even went so far as to describe Martin's paintings as pantomimes of the apocalypse. Although that is a harsh criticism for any artist, it also tells us a lot about how the painting was perceived in its time. Pandemonium did not fit at all within traditional standards. It was too big and too scandalous for many academic tastes, but in my opinion, that is precisely where the power of this painting lies. While other artists aim to represent the divine, the beautiful, or the realistic, Martin chose instead to portray chaos and destruction. Now, beyond everything we have seen so far, there is one element I haven't shown you yet that makes this painting even more incredible and elevates it into a true masterpiece, and that element is its frame. John Martin also designed the frame. Its ornamentation is carved with serpents, dragons, and fantastical creatures that visually continue the horror unfolding inside the scene. It feels as if the painting cannot contain so much darkness and it begins to spill outward. This detail, which many people don't know about, shows just how much Martin conceived his work as a complete, immersive experience. Today, Pandemonium is part of the collection of the Louvre Museum in Paris, hanging in a gallery alongside other 19th century works, but it unfortunately does not receive much attention. Few visitors stop in front of it, and it rarely appears in lists or recommended tours, which is almost ironic considering how much this painting communicates, and not only about the past. Because beyond its literary inspiration, Pandemonium can also be read as a modern critique of urban arrogance. Martin watched his city rise on sick foundations, and he portrayed it as what he feared it would become, a modern version of hell. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. I would love for you to leave your thoughts in the comments, whether you had seen this painting before, and of course, if you think there was any detail I missed in the analysis, feel free to share it down below. If you would like to have this painting in your home, you can find it through the link in the description. In our catalogue, you'll discover many more works by John Martin and countless other artists, so you can start your own art collection and turn your home into your personal museum. Shipping is free worldwide, and by purchasing, you'll be helping me tremendously to continue creating videos like this. Thank you all for your support, and I'll see you in the next video.